music. I'm sure that's a thing you can
We
do here.
should. I know. I need to work that out. That's going to be like a V2 type thing on this stream. Just I'm a big fan of kind of improving it
Oh yeah, no, I don't
as
mean
you.
like it has to be perfect right now, but um, it's the thought, like some nice like jazz. We'll probably have to do something. I don't know. We're not popular enough. Nobody in the music industry would send us a cease and desist at this point. Have to find some like publicly usable free music.
All right, we're live, so I think that we just need to share that fact. So let's take a couple minutes, and I don't know. We got like what, 2 minutes?
Yeah, are people going to be able to comment somewhere?
I think so. I think. Do you have
We should.
StreamYard
I
open?
do.
You
Yeah,
should
I
be
do.
able
I
to.
I see the chat there. I just wasn't sure if there was like a better place that people could chat. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna drop the a link to our Discord,
Yo,
and we
what's
can just like
up,
if you want to share that, that would be cool. Oh, that I'm seeing some
Ken
chats. There's a
Rand?
chat.
What's up?
Looks like
What's
from
up?
from YouTube.
Glad you're here. Yeah, if you're here, you're hanging out. Say hi. Sound off. We're gonna start at like we're gonna try to start strictly at 1, and then we'll just kind of see how things go. I think I'm seeing it show up in all the places. This is new for us, so it's kind of exciting. Okay, cool. Let me make sure. So
Oh, that's funny. All right, that's interesting. I need to. I'm
so
signed in as
Twitter
Work OS right now.
Twitter chat does not show up, so that'll be kind of interesting to see. I might have to open that in a different tab. Or X, I guess. Oh, it does show up. We just can't reply, maybe? I don't know. I don't know. Who knows?
I'm not.
Okay, cool.
I'm calling it Twitter, whether you do or not. Just FYI. It's my minor form of resistance.
Old guys go hard. Actually, I was
That's
curious
right.
about this. I was thinking about this. I was like thinking about like how funny it is. Like you're younger than me, but you're like still middle aged, right?
Not yeah, not too much. I'm 40 is right around the corner. I'm 39
Oh,
this
okay,
year.
cool. Awesome. Okay, cool. Okay, cool. It is 1 o'clock. Let's do this thing. Hey, I want to welcome everybody to this stream. This is our first stream, streaming on Radix, and we're gonna, spend the first 15 minutes just kind of talking about what this is about, why we're doing it, maybe some brief intros on ourselves. So feel free to say hi, whichever platform you are on. We would love to get to know you a little bit better. Yeah, so we're gonna jump into it. We have I think about 2 hours that we're planning on hanging out today, and we're gonna be figuring it out. So tell us what you want, and we'll figure this out. This is our first one, so we're kind of working out the kinks. Hey, Joel. Um, and yeah, so pretty exciting new streaming software. Chance and I have streamed in the past, but it was a long time ago. So not hip on all that stuff. Chance, how are you? How you doing today?
I'm doing all right. Yeah, it's been a little hectic day, but we're hanging in there. Excited to work on some Radix stuff though. It'll be fun.
Yeah, it's gonna be good. Yeah, so I think first and foremost, we should probably talk about why we're doing this and kind of like what our goal for this time is. I don't know. Over the past couple of months, there's been a lot of discussion on X about Radix, kind of questions about the way that it's maintained, uh, if people should move to different libraries, etc. And at WorkOS, it's kind of funny. We use it a lot, and so like all of that stuff doesn't really feel true to us, but we use it because we maintain it and contribute to it for our work projects. So it's used like exclusively. We use it exclusively at WorkOS. We have our own design system built around it, auth kits built with it, etc. And So we just figured we would do some of that work publicly now and create a space for people to check in, kind of see how things are maintained, see the philosophy of it, ask questions. If you have an issue that's been sitting around for a while, and just kind of have some pretty extreme accountability, I guess, around that, and just open it up to discussion and just help people realize that it's still live, still kicking, and we're continuing to contribute to it. Chance, do you have anything you want to add to that?
Sure. Yeah. So all of that is correct. So for sort of context of where I fit into the workOS / Radix world these days, if anyone, I'm sure a lot of people don't know who I am. I'm not famous or anything, so I'll just sort of give a little quick history. So I worked at a company called Modules a little while ago, so well before I worked at workOS, and so I was actually on the original team, the Radix team that helped create what we know as Radix now. So I was sort of there from the very beginning, the early days of Radix, helped build it and launch it, and then I left Modules, and in that time, Modules actually got acquired by workOS, and I was out of the picture at this point, was nowhere involved in that, and I came to workOS much later. When I came onto workOS, I was actually hired as a product engineer. I was not brought on specifically or exclusively to work on Radix. But the team that I joined, part of our responsibility as a team is maintaining Radix and maintaining our own internal design system. And our internal design system, as Chan mentioned, is built completely on Radix. So, hey, Cameron, thank you. You're famous to me too. So anyway, yeah. So that's it. It'll just provide a little context of how I fit into the picture, how I came back to Radix and came back to workOS, and sort of how we use it internally. We build our design system on top of it. We have external products like all of several of our actual products internally, like OffKit is built entirely on top of Radix. We now have a widgets project that allows you to bring in workOS specific, like battery packs included, components into your library that help you display things like user management tables and other really useful workOS products. All of those are built on top of Radix too. So we have very clear incentives to make sure Radix is as good as it possibly can be. We put a high value on user experience, a high value on really well built functioning components. And so we have a stake in that, right? We want to really make sure that this thing works really well because we rely on it. We need it. So, and we're not switching component libraries anytime soon internally. So, switching component libraries is a lot of work, as a lot of folks know. So we have no desire to do that. So anyway, that's just sort of how I fit into the picture, how workOS fits in the picture, and hopefully that provides a little bit of context to some folks.
Yeah, I think it's funny. I think you and I both want a better internet.
I literally said that in my job interview. Funny enough, when I came onto workOS, they're like, "Why do you want to work at workOS?" And I'm like, "Well, Auth sucks, and we can make it better." I don't know if you've noticed lately. I try to sign into literally anything, and it's just a nightmare.
Yeah, it's terrible. Yeah, the internet
Yeah.
sucks right now, and I think one of the reasons that you and I have spent so much time in kind of design systems and Radix is great because it handles a lot of accessibility stuff for you, the stuff that can be handled for you that you don't have to kind of get right yourself, given your circumstances. And I think that that's one of the things that people love so much about Radix is all the attention that's gone, or intention that's gone into the library.
Yep.
And so I think seeing its popularity with LLMs and seeing even more usage every day than we've seen in the past is a really exciting opportunity to kind of contribute to that goal of a better internet and by making Radix better. So I think that's both of us just want the internet to suck less is I would say a pretty core motivation for us.
Yep, completely agreed.
Yeah, so I think one thing that's probably important to clarify about this stream is that this is the first one, so we're kind of talking high level, hello world. But ultimately, like, this is going to be, or this is a work stream. This is our time to work on Radix, to talk about the philosophy of it, to educate people into making the best contributions that they can, and also just like triaging issues, talking through that as we go through it, and hopefully, like a little bit of showcasing what people are working on. So it's, both of, as Chance mentioned, both of us have a job. We're at our job right now, so we're not trying to make it as streamers. We're just trying to make this library as good as possible. So it may not be like entertainment based stream, but we're hoping that, if you join, you'll learn a lot about the library, how it's maintained, and kind of how we're trying to add tools to it to make the maintenance better. Chance, any words on that?
Yeah, no, this should be very boring actually. As soon as we finish talking, we're going to go right into work mode and triaging and just sort of exposing the guts of like what it feels like to be an open source maintainer for a popular library. And it's not exciting actually. So yeah, thanks to anyone who wants to tag along for that. Um, should be fun. I'm excited about it just because I love working on this stuff. But if you're excited about it, you're probably just as big of a nerd as I am.
Yeah, this is for real big nerds. The real big nerds. So yeah, so let's I think we don't I think we'll probably touch on a lot of topics that we had like wanted to talk about as we go through some of the stuff. So if you're ready, we could just jump right in. You want to do that?
Yeah, let's do that. I do want to talk just a minute actually. One
Yeah.
more quick thing. Just kind of wanted to talk about like the sort of like philosophy that we have. There's different pieces of this. Like there's a philosophy about like Radix is a component library and like how it fits into your app, and like the API decisions are sort of like built around this philosophy. But there's also like just a general philosophy of open source and like what does it mean to ship an open source project? What does it mean to consume and install an open source project? And like I've done this for a while now, and I have some opinions about this. I've sort of like brought some of those opinions to Radix. So yeah, so ultimately, I think what we give you is a really well built set of tools. But the key here is that you get to use them, and you don't have to pay for them. You don't have to like to do any work on your own. You just get to consume them, and they're yours, and it feels great, and you get to ship fast, and that's what we want. Like we want to really encourage that. We want to really help you ship fast. I mean, it helps us ship fast, helps us build really high quality user interfaces, and we want the same for you and the same for the internet at large. And so we're very motivated to do that. However, just as sort of like a philosophy of open source, I think something that we've lost as consumers of open source over the past few years is just the understanding that even though it's sort of tucked away in your node modules, you still do own the code, right? It's right there in the MIT license. So if I open up our license file, it's free of charge. You can use it without restriction. Like you do with it whatever you want. You can also you can copy, you can modify, you can do anything you want with this software. Hidden in this notice is sort of a contract, right? Like you, by using the library, you sign this contract, but it also like really empowers you as a developer to truly take ownership over this thing. And I think a lot of us, and myself included, I've been guilty of this as well. A lot of us forget that we do actually own the code that we install in our applications and that we push to production. And I think that's really important. And so when people talk about so and so package is not maintained, or so and so didn't fix my specific issue, and now I'm blocked on it, and I can never get past this one thing, and I have to like do all of these ugly things in my code to work around it. That's not actually true. All of the code that we give you is in a tidy little folder called node modules. You can actually crack that folder open, and you can open the files in it. and you can make changes to the files in it. And all of that stuff is going to be reflected at runtime in your application. It's not the black box that I think a lot of people think it is. It feels that way because node modules is get ignored. You don't see it. It's got a jillion files in it, and we're terrified to look through it. A lot of it's minified. So it's like it feels scary, but it's actually less scary than you'd think, because at the end of the day, we all know JavaScript. And if I can go to unpackage and like take a look at, let's look at a Radix package. This is actually what ships in your application. If we take a look at the code, we don't minify this because I don't want people to have a hard time like actually making changes or doing anything. And this file is a common JS file, so it's a little bit abstracted. But if you're using ES modules, it's a little bit more straightforward. Like I can go into my node modules in any project that I have and make a tiny update to this code, save it, and use a package called patch package. Or if you're using PNPM or Yarn, there's actually tools built into that are designed to let you make changes directly to things in your node modules, save them, and then every time you set up your application, it's going to run a patch or run a script that does a patch, so that change is actually, even though your node modules are get ignored, that change can be consistent across different users. It can be run before you launch production, so that you can ensure that these changes are there for everyone. And those patches are checked into your Git repo, so there's full visibility there. So it sort of like opens up the black box a little bit. So I just want to really encourage people, like if you have an issue that you feel like the maintainers are not addressing because for whatever reason, like just don't be afraid. Like let's, as an ecosystem, just really embrace this, right? Like every library has bugs. Everything has bugs. Like the original Mario for SNES has bugs. Tetris has bugs. Like software from the 80s that no one says that this software is no longer valid or usable software, because I play Tetris. It's great. But there's bugs. So all software has bugs. So just like, don't be afraid of those bugs. Don't be afraid of fixing them, and don't be afraid of shipping that to production, because you own the code. And that's just like a core philosophical tenet I have about all the open source software that I install. And I really encourage us as a community, as an ecosystem, to just embrace that a little bit more. Open the black box.
Yeah, you own everything you install. It's like
exactly.
You got a head start because someone else wrote it for you, but it's yours now.
That's right. And it's really helpful to just understand how things work too. Who even reads their node modules? Like read some of them sometime. It's like super educational. Like I actually got to work on Radix because I previously worked on a library called Reach UI, and I got to work on Reach UI because I actually made changes to Reach UI for my own projects. I did exactly all the things I'm talking about, and it helped me learn how the spaghetti is made. And it's like so valuable for your career and just professional growth. So anyway, I don't want to rant about that anymore.
Like, one of the first things that before I knew any better, one of the first things that I did when I started writing JavaScript, and like one of the cool things about JavaScript is like people are like fairly motivated to make things open source, because it's really hard to actually obscure JavaScript. Once it's
oh totally,
you can do your best, but at the end of the day, like it's pretty easy to see source. Anyone who's mildly motivated can see the source of a JavaScript app, and so
for better or worse.
For better or worse. And so I think that's why we're all motivated to do things in open source, because largely it's like we recognize that it's already effectively open.
Yep.
And I think before I knew any better, like one of the first JavaScript apps that I built it with I joined a project that was being built with this library called Batman.js. Hilariously, it was one of Shopify's first forays into JavaScript frameworks. They've done several since.
They've learned a few things.
And they've tried a bunch of things in the JavaScript space. It was one of the first ones, though. It was entertaining, but yeah, I remember one of the first things I did was recognize that there was something that needed to be patched it, and got it pulled into the core. So it really isn't as scary as it sounds, and oftentimes when you have that error, you're the best person to debug it as well. So big fan of that. So, Chance, should we jump into like triaging? Would that be the best place to start, or do you have kind of a
Yeah.
project that you want to jump into first?
Well, no, I always like to start with triaging. So anytime it's a time to work on Radix, I immediately just jump into GitHub, and the first place I go is pull requests. Um, and this is true on any open source project I've worked on. Like, just because it's the lowest level of friction and time involvement is to merge other people's code because you don't have to write any of it, which is nice. I love not writing code. In fact, if you open a pull request that deletes my code, I will be even happier. So PR request deleting code, very welcome. Because code, honestly, we don't want code. Code's where bugs come from, and we don't like code. So anyway,
Yeah, the more
uh,
code, the more bugs.
that's right. That's how that works. So yeah, so I just like jump into PRs and start like looking through things. I'll go through and maybe we'll just sort them by, let's see. Let's go oldest because there are some old things in here that haven't been looked at or just needs. You see this needs investigation tag. Like obviously some PRs we can't just YOLO merge because we don't actually know. We don't know what they're doing, right? We have to read the code first, and I don't have time to read every single PR that people open because this is a popular library, and popular libraries get a lot of activity, which is great, but it's a double-edged sword. We've got limited time in our day, so what I'll do is kind of just go into these some of these PRs, and I'll just look over them and see, is this something that I can just easily merge in and if it fixes a bug? If so, great. If I have a lot of confidence just reading the code that it'll actually fix our issue, I might just go ahead and merge it. This one, let's see, we're taking out a use effect. This is in our form component. Let's go back and actually just start with a conversation. What is this actually doing? I think React's onBlur event is a better choice for a few reasons. What are we fixing? Native change event and form control change. Okay, so I can already tell you right now, this one's going to take a little bit of reviewing because this is actually going to change some core functionality. And if we're changing core functionality, then I need to actually review this in a little bit more depth. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to toss this needs investigation on here. I'm also going to assign myself to it. And I'm going to remove some reviewers because these folks no longer work here. So please don't go into every issue you open and assign everyone to review your code. It's kind of annoying. I just end up like with way too many GitHub notifications. Not saying everybody does this. I think we originally had a GitHub code owners file that like auto assigned to everybody, which in hindsight, probably not a great idea because just ends up being annoying. So anyway, I'm going to review this. I'm going to assign it to myself. So I'm going to come back to this. This is kind of like the easy step of triage. You just sort of go through, you read an issue, you assess how much work is this going to take, and then I do something actionable with it. So my action here is I need to investigate this later. I've self-assigned, and now I have a place in my notifications view and my task view to know what to do when I come back. So when it's actually time to do some work. So that's where we start. Pretty straightforward stuff.
2715. I just want to link these for anyone that's following.
Yeah. Sorry. Yes, this is 2715.
Okay, cool. Perfect.
Let's keep this window open so I don't have to keep sorting through these. So let's see. This one. Oh, I can already tell you just by the title, this one's going to be hairy. Okay, so fix select portal by using presence component. All right, so if people don't know, there's a lot of Radix primitives that everybody knows because we all use them directly. Everyone knows what a select is, but no one really, or a lot of people don't know that there are some internal components too that we use for common shared behavior. And one of those is the presence component, which is really useful in the context of animating or doing entrance and exit animations for components that unmount. And, when a component unmounts, it means that the element that it is rendering will be removed from the DOM. And so if it's removed from the DOM, up until recently, until there's a new CSS feature for defining like starting styles for things that are no longer in the DOM, which is really cool. You can now do like CSS animations for things that are leaving the DOM, which was not possible before with CSS. But it's also not possible to do any sort of like JavaScript animation for something that just goes away. So we need, in order to do any sort of animation, for a component that is unmounted, we need some sort of tool for keeping that thing in the DOM until whatever is making the thing exit finishes its work. Once that happens, then we can safely remove it from the DOM. But while that's happening, you might want to do some animation to make, like in a select, in this case, is rendered inside of a portal. And that just means it's appended to the bottom of the DOM tree. Um, and if we want to do like an exit animation on the select popover, we're going to be using the presence component internally to make sure that that thing still exists. So
All right,
TLDR, this is going to be
yeah,
fixing one of those issues. So go ahead.
I got a question about this, and so like, and just to be clear, I don't know a lot of Radix. I kind of like got out of like UI design around the time that Radix was gaining popularity. Um, I'm curious. So this brings up a question for me about kind of like browser compatibility. Is there a line in the sand of like how deeply we go on browser compatibility for Radix? Does that presence component automatically wrap those APIs so that you can kind of use whatever the newest native API is? What does that look like under the hood?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So the presence component itself isn't really concerned with that. It's only real utility is keeping something that's no longer in the DOM for a little bit longer until some other task is finished running. So it's kind of like it's an abstraction that's very agnostic to like whether or not an animation feature is supported in a browser or whatever. Like it doesn't care about that. You get to opt into that because composition, right? Like, so if I don't
Mhm.
want to do any sort of JavaScript animation and I don't want to use this presence component, you don't really have to. All you have to do is add a class name to your Radix component and add CSS to that component, and that's it.
Nice.
You don't have to do anything else. So like you don't have to even care that that this presence component exists. The reason this is useful is for folks who are not using those features, who don't want to use those features for one reason or another. Maybe they're using like Framer Motion to do animation, or CSS transition group is another one. Like any number of like React animation libraries out there are going to need you to essentially have a way to keep a component mounted while the thing does its thing, and then safely remove it when that work is done. And so
Hmm.
that's kind of what this enables you. But like that's completely your choice. Like Radix just fundamentally is so agnostic to a lot of these concerns. And that is such a huge benefit for consumers because you get to do a lot of things yourself. And it's a little bit more work in terms of styling, but you own that. And then tools like ShadCN are great because you can come in and you can take Radix components, drop them in, and then just add whatever styling you want. And then you can recompose things to your own liking. Like composition is a huge part of our philosophy and how we build APIs. So the idea is to make things so composable and so um, divvied up into like these little units, and you can sort of pick and choose how you actually implement certain things.
Okay,
Does that make
nice.
sense?
Yeah. Oh, totally. Yeah, yeah. I just wanted to, I guess, the other part of that question, it was kind of like a lot of questions in one. Is there a browser target for
Ah,
Radix?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't really have like a strict browser support policy. Maybe we should. That's something I should really think about. I mean, we definitely support browsers that are older. I'd say probably between like I think it's safe to say 2020 and up, which is 5 years ago. So, if you're older than that, IE11 is no longer a thing. I don't know if you guys know this, but like people shouldn't use it because Microsoft doesn't even maintain it anymore. And if Microsoft stopped maintaining it, it's time to move on, yo. So we've moved on from
And
IE11.
yeah, most of the browsers are evergreen now, so I think that does kind of like change things. I mean,
Yeah,
man, I
and
remember.
you can drop in a bunch of polyfills too. Like it's not
Yeah,
really that hard to patch a lot of JavaScript behavior anymore. And
yeah,
if
yeah.
you're not happy with that, take a bundler and toss that. But I think 5 years is probably safe to say. We don't really have a strict policy. If someone opens a bug where there's like a cross browser problem or like an old browser problem, we just kind of assess it, and if it for me, it's just like if it adds a ton of complexity to support a super old browser, might not be worth dealing with, or like let consumers kind of deal with it, because you own your code, like we just said. You own anything you install, so own it. If you need to like wrap it in a bundler process, like you can do that. So yeah, good question. We should think about that a little bit more.
Okay, yeah. So what's the next step on this one?
Yeah. So I'm looking at this now, and yeah, I can already tell you this is another one that will probably just need a little bit more investigation. So
Okay.
we do. This is something. It's pretty common in our libraries, is this force mount component. So force mount is kind of like it's kind of a hack almost, well, not really a hack, but it's just it like exposes a little of the Radix guts to consumers. So in order for presence to actually work the way that it's designed to work, we need to make sure that the child of the presence component is force mounted, meaning that we don't unmount the component automatically when something like goes away. So like in a select popover, for example, when you close the popover, we can either just hide it in the DOM, or we can get rid of it from the component tree. And by default, we're going to get rid of it from the component tree because there's no styling behavior built into Radix, and so we don't just visually hide it. But if you want to keep it around, if you want to, for presence to work the way that we've designed for it to work, you can use this force mount prop and pass it into the presence component, and that will keep the child around, and then leave it up to you as the consumer to actually visually hide that thing when the time comes. I think this is actually. I think I feel
What
pretty
is the trick
confident that
that
this
it
is
uses?
fine. Oh, it's not really a trick. It's let's see if we can go into some code. But yeah, there's like a force mount prop. So it's like the trick is that if force mount is true, then we're going to render the child, and we do some manipulation to pass a ref in. But like the
Nice.
actual trick is like we render it. If not, we don't. That's it. Like pretty straightforward. The whole point here is that you need to keep the component mounted in order for it to stay in the DOM, and
Yeah.
so that's pretty much it. That's the trick.
I've had this an issue that I've had is so like Aria. There's this idea of like alerts, and where are they called alerts? Live regions, live something, live
Sure.
sure, live something. So this is like live something, and they're for announcing things. But you want to keep a stable reference to an element that you post these messages into, and React does really want to clean up anything that doesn't have anything inside of it, and so it does kind of like require a trick like this as well to like make sure that you hold a stable reference that React can update when the time is right.
Totally. So I'm looking at this now. The actual implementation, I think, is completely safe and fine. What I kind of want to do here, I'll like view the raw code real quick.
Yeah, while you're pulling that up, Ducking Test had a question that I think is
Sure.
I don't know, up your alley. Do you think Radix will add a support for a combo box?
Oh man, we should have a time to combo box thing for these streams, because it's always going to be asked. It's been asked for years and years and years and years, and the answer is maybe. So there you go.
What is so?
Really,
I want
really
to
dropping some bombs on you today.
so I want to talk about this. So you have like actually just this last Friday, you demoed this really crazy component that actually like uses a combo box to dive into like a JSON object and kind of like filter things. It was super cool. The demo is really amazing. As we were talking about it, I know that you were saying that like this is so off grid that there aren't even any like YARIA recommendations on how to do something like this. And I know that that is a big concern about making anything that is going to get just broadly consumed. So you've built plenty of combo boxes with the tools in Radix, but there isn't like a Radix combo box yet. Can you talk a little bit about like how, like why that's challenging, like why it's hard to just make a combo box already?
Totally.
Make a combo box already.
Oh man, so I've built so many combo boxes. If to the point where I could almost define my career as I'm a senior combo box developer, but I built a lot of combo boxes. And so combo box is really tricky, and I see a lot of people. And the reason people want it so bad is because they don't want to build it, and I don't blame them. Like it sucks. I don't want to build any more combo boxes. Unfortunately, I see many more combo boxes in my future. Like you said, I'm literally building one right now internally at WorkOS. So it built a lot of them. And we have one in WorkOS. Like our design system has one. So we need it, obviously. Everybody needs it. Um, so yeah, I get it. I get why you're asking. I get why everybody's asking. Everybody wants it. Saves you a lot of time. So I want it too, trust me. So the problem is that trying to generalize a combo box is way, way more complicated than I think anyone realizes. Like there are so many possible configuration options for combo box. Let's like take a look at other um, some other popular libraries that have a combo box and just sort of like take a look. So Aria Kit, this is a great library. Um, uh, yeah, Diego's awesome, maintainer of Aria Kit. So shout out. I reference his stuff all the time. Really, really good. And so also for anybody who doesn't know, like every one of this, like all the similar libraries in the ecosystem, we all steal each other's code. So I don't think Diego would be mad about it. In fact, I've left comments in Radix because MIT license tells you should to leave credit to people when you're stealing their code because we steal code. So you should steal code too. It's great. That's what the MIT license is good for. So steal a lot of their code. They steal some of ours, and it's a give and take. We're all on the same team. So all trying to build a better internet. Let's take a look at the Combo Box API though. Let's see if we can find. So actually, I think maybe it's like use Combo Box is going to have all this documentation somewhere. All right. So oh yeah. So look at all the configuration options for this thing. Like
Ooh-wee.
that's
That's
like
a
these are all the
lot.
props that you could pass that change the core functionality of a combo box. And let's just like think about what it even is a combo box. Some people might not even know what a combo box is. Let's see, Aria combo box example. Let's see if we can find one. I
Yeah,
can
let's
just
take it all
also
the way back. What even is a
like
combo
what even
box?
is a combo box? So a combo box at a high level is just an input that has a list of options, and you can start typing in the input to filter these options. Um, I think you might have a bug, Diego, if you're watching. I'm not actually nothing's happening when I try to filter, but um,
Maybe there's no like on select callback
or maybe
information.
maybe there's not supposed to be for that example. So here's a filtering example. So yeah, you basically, if I have a list of options and I want to be able to search through that list and narrow down the list of options. It's like a select with an input that allows you to filter things out, right? So that's kind of like at the core what it is. And if it were only that simple, then we'd just build one because it's actually not that hard to do this exact thing. Um, so now where it gets tricky is, I mean, there's a bunch of different examples here that RAKit is showing where you've got like, so let's look at just a random one. So animated combo box. So like this goes back to what we were just talking about with presence. There's an
Hmm.
entrance animation and exit animation. Let's see what the code actually looks like to do this. So I think it's pretty straightforward actually. And it might just even be using CSS internally. I'm not sure how he's doing this. Um, yeah, I think he's just doing CSS actually for this. So pretty straightforward. So yes, probably a bunch of other examples, but essentially there's a bunch of different ways that you can build a combo box. Look at another one. React Aria combo box is another one whose code I've stolen. Explore components. Go down to let's find a combo box here. It's got to be in here somewhere. There we go. So let's see here. So this one's already different. This is their basic example. One small difference between how this one works and the one we just looked at is there's this little button that allows you to open it when you click on the button. So it's a slight difference. So a little like just let's point out a little bit of nuance in what's happening. This looks very simple, right? Like you click a button, a thing opens. No big deal. Well, for a combo box, because the thing that you want to do once you start using the combo box is you want to be able to type in the input and start filtering things, right? So small detail, but if I click this button, the browser is going to focus the button, not the input. If the browser focuses the button and I start typing, nothing happens to the input. So I want to make sure that when I click this button, that the input is automatically focused so I can start typing, right? Small detail, but every combo box is going to have some sort of implementation to make sure that that happens. So the second you add a button in here, you need to change some of the functionality. If you don't have a button in there, the functionality is going to slightly differ. So we've already started like opening up the box of like different configurations, adding different levels of complexity. And that one's a very simple one. There's a lot more. So let's just go through down here. So all that to say is like there's a bunch of different things that a combo box could potentially do or ways to build them that will change some of the complexity in terms of the implementation. And I would say more so in a combo box than the vast majority of other components. So what happens if you want to do some like a multi-select thing? I bet they have an example here. Multi-select, maybe. Oh yeah, selection behavior, I think is what they call it. They have a prop here. So if you want to do like multiple select, so you can select multiple items while the thing's open. Like if you do that, there's more complexity because now I go in and I if it's single select, I probably want the combo box to just close and set the value. If it's multi-select, I don't want to select or close the popover because then I'd have to go and reopen it every time I wanted to add a selection to it. So change in behavior, add some complexity. And just continue this process forward with every feature you can imagine a combo box having. What happens if you want certain items to be grouped? What happens if you want some of those items that are grouped to be collapsible or some in some other way like filtering? What happens if you want to customize the filtering logic? You know, like all of these things are going to change how complex it is to implement the actual combo box. So building this in a way that is as robust as people expect a combo box to be and want their combo box to be is just a lot of work. And so when you ask, is Radix going to have a combo box? The reason we don't is because it's a lot of work. And there's also accessibility testing, and there's also API considerations. Like, how do we design an API? And we think about this for every component that we ship. We say Radix, and people expect Radix to be quote unquote accessible by default. But the reality is like that's also not even true, and it's not even possible. Like, there's no such thing as a component library that's accessible by default because accessibility is so much of it is about the context in which a thing exists. Like, you know, a combo box itself cannot be accessible by default because what if you forget to add a label to your input field? It's no longer accessible. And we don't know what that is. We can't know what that is. We can't know what the label is because we don't know what type of values you're filtering through. We don't know the context in which that thing exists. And that's true for so many components. And so like when we think about the different APIs that we ship in Radix, we have to also think about what makes it as easy for you as the developer to do well, because we don't want you shipping inaccessible things. We don't want you shipping a bad user experience. It's possible because it's a low-level tool, and low-level tools are sharp knives that can be used in bad ways. And we can't stop you from doing that, but we can try through our API design to make it as easy as possible to do the good thing, to do the right thing. That's really hard with combo box because there are so many different configurations, and with every potential configuration there's potential for you to mishandle it or get something wrong that really breaks the user experience.
Yeah,
so
like
all
it's
of
a
these
sharp knife,
considerations.
but like it's all edges. Like no
So
handle.
yeah, so much of that. Well, it's true to a degree. I think the handle is composition. Like that really everything comes back down to like composition and React. And so like the handle for you is like you have the ability to change the composition of any of our components, and in doing so should make it pretty simple to do things well. And that's the utility of Radix. But you can also, by that same logic, you can change the composition in ways that does the opposite. So that's a sharp knife for you. Anyway, TLDR, combo boxes are hard.
Combo box master class.
Oh man, I should launch a course on combo boxes and make $1 jillion.
Yeah, dude. I'm Chance Strickland, and this is my master class.
But we do build combo box. So the one that we have in our design system at WorkOS is actually built on Radix components. We just build a lot of that functionality ourselves, but like we use core components like the Radix input in the Radix form library. We use the popover. So we have basically taken pieces from Radix and used it to assemble our own combo box internally that follows a lot of the same principles as a Radix component would. And the idea is that, for at least my idea, is that hopefully we get to a point where all of our uses of combo box internally are varied enough and generalizable enough that we can just extract that functionality into a primitive like package and
Yeah.
then potentially consider exposing it as a Radix component. We don't right now because it's just not there yet, and there's a lot more testing that would need to be done in order to feel really good about shipping that thing. But it's totally doable to build your own combo box on top of Radix components.
I think this is a really interesting point that I want to like press into is that just from a UI development perspective, is that you said all of our combo boxes, right? Like, so at WorkOS, we have numerous combo boxes. And
Yep.
so far, like that's been the approach is like just build the one that you need for the use case that you have. And we have several that are different. And we have yet to find that common thread that unifies all of them just yet.
Yep. Yep, that's right. And let's see, I'm gonna see if I can find one or two. I don't actually know where all of them live, but I know that there are some. Maybe I can find one. Maybe not. Nope, nothing there. No, maybe not worth looking for it. But yeah, there's just like a few different patterns we use. So a combo box could also be, it could be triggered by the input that we saw where you start typing and then that triggers the popover. It could also be triggered by a button and then the input actually lives inside the popover, which completely changes the implementation details in so many ways. And we just need to be smart enough through like composition to know where the thing exists in the tree to determine what functionality it uses. Yeah, stuff like that. It just really just changes so much of the implementation and adds a ton of complexity. And we just have to be really confident that it's done in a smart enough and generalizable enough way for everyone who uses Radix to really get a lot of value out of this thing.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Oh, another cool thing, actually, since we're talking about combo box, do you want to talk about this for another 2 hours? Because I could.
Honestly,
Um,
I have it written down as a note. Like building a combo box would actually probably be a fun way to spend an hour on this
yeah.
stream.
So this is really cool, and actually, I think this does a great job in showing how flexible and how powerful the composition model of something like Radix really is. AriaKit has an example where if you're already using Radix and you need a combo box, but you don't want to build that stuff yourself because it's hard, you can actually use some of your Radix primitives alongside something like AriaKit to add in some missing behavior to build your own combo box, and it's really easy actually. So just take a look at the code here. Um, you're importing the actual combo box behavior from AriaKit, but you're importing the popover behavior from Radix. And because everything is just composition all the way down, you have this really elegant Radix-like UI, and you just backfill some of that missing functionality using AriaKit, and now you have a combo box. And one day, if Radix ships a combo box, you can just take all these components away, and likely the APIs will be similar enough that you can just add in some of the same behavior. And now you're using the Radix combo box. Pretty cool that you can just do that through composition. This is using a Radix popover. So yeah, pretty cool. I like this a lot.
Nice, love it. What's the link to that? You mind posting that in?
Oh, yep. I should
Or
stop
I can grab
closing.
it.
Let's see, Radix. Is there something in here? There it is. I got it. Boom. Pop it in the chat.
Nice. Thank you. Are you kidding?
All right. No
Okay,
more
cool.
combo boxes. Let's stop talking
No
about
more.
combo
Yeah.
boxes.
We're gonna clip that and then put the combo box conversation to rest
Okay.
for a bit.
Cool. Sorry. Even when you say a word enough times, it just it sounds weird. Sounds funny.
Feels weird. Yeah.
That's how combo box is doing right now. All right. Anyway, so like, where were we? We're back to Radix stuff.
I know. Back to triage. Like,
back to real life.
The slowest way to triage issues ever.
Yeah, no kidding. I thought we were gonna get a lot done, but we just talked about combo boxes for 30 minutes. Oh yeah. So anyway, TLDR. I think this is a pretty straightforward PR, and I don't have any issues merging it. I do think we are unnecessarily passing the force mount. So right now it looks like we're adding a force mount prop to the select portal and just passing it through to the underlying portal, which is very straightforward, no problem. Let's see, this is an older PR, so yeah, it's definitely got some conflicts. Let's pull up the select and just see if we are already doing this, maybe. No, we're not. Okay. Select portal. Let's take a look here. I'm just curious if we are passing through all the props. We are. Select portal props, extend portal primitive. I think this is actually, I don't think we actually need this PR anymore, actually. So I think we're just already passing through the props. Oh, you know what? No, that's not true. Because we need to, so the core of this PR is wrapping that in the presence component. All right, I'm going to come back to this one. I actually think it's going to be pretty simple to fix, but I do need to do some manual testing on it. So I'm just going to go needs res or needs investigation, assign it to myself. Boom. Now we're done. All right, cool.
Quick
Uh,
question.
yeah,
Obviously, when you merge things, they don't go straight into a release. Is there like a kind of like a staging area? How is that aspect of it kind of
yeah.
considered?
So that's a good question. So we use change sets, which is an open source tool
Oh, sick.
to make releases very straightforward. And the idea is that anytime you merge a PR or make any changes, you run a script. It uses change sets internally to detect which packages were changed. And then, and you can also say like, was this particular change a minor update? Does it necessitate a major change? Like, is it a breaking change? Is it just a patch? And then it basically creates a file that isolates those changes and define and sets the parameters for that release. And so let's take a look at this change set file. It's just a markdown file that says this particular change involved the React one-time password field. What did the change actually do? It made a fix to fix this bug. I'll probably update this a little bit for the change log to make it a little bit more clear what this is doing. But this essentially gives us a log between releases to tell us exactly what's changed. And so when it comes time to cut a release, there's a change sets GitHub action that will run that will compile all of these change sets into a new PR, and this is all handled automatically. So a bot is going to do all this and then open a new PR. Let's see if we can find a closed version of this. Let's see. Let's say is merged. Let's say change sets. New release. So here's a PR example. So the bot is, oh, no, that's not the bot. So let's just say, see if the author field is going to help us. GitHub Actions. I think that's how this works. Yeah, there we go. Okay, cool. So this thing's going to run, and it's going to take all of the change sets that we've added, and it's going to delete all the change sets files. It's going to use its internal algorithms to figure out like which packages need to be a major update, which ones needs to be a patch. It's going to figure out all the crazy dependency issues because a lot of these packages are dependent on one another, and it's just going to automate that process, and it's going to update all the versions. And then we're going to have, once we merge this PR, there's another action that goes in and actually publishes everything to NPM. So we shouldn't theoretically have to do anything. Another nice thing about this workflow is that because this is initially handled in a PR, I can go through and pull this branch down and make changes locally. So if I want to update the change logs to have like more human readable friendly language, I can just do that and push it back to the PR before I merge. And then when that
Nice.
merge is done, it's going to update all the change logs. It's going to handle the versioning. It's going to create new releases in the GitHub releases section. So down in here, when it says, actually, no, I think I've disabled that. So pretend I didn't say anything, but so that didn't actually happen. But it is going to, it could, if we wanted to enable GitHub releases. I think the reason we don't is just because we have too many packages and it gets confusing. But
Yeah.
anyway, it just automates most of the release process. So we don't really have to think much about stuff because we only recently did this, by the way. Up until I think like 3 or 4 months ago, this was all manual. And let me tell you, it sucked. We did use, we previously used Yarn plug and play to do something similar to change sets where we did actually track the changes. But when it came time to actually do the release, we had to manually do a lot more work to actually ship that thing. And yeah,
Yeah.
it kind of sucks. So don't do that. make the robots work in your favor.
Dude, monorepo releases are rough. Even, I mean, they've always been rough.
So anyway, we're doing a lot better. And it's another thing I had too is like when people say, "Oh, you're not doing anything to Radix," a lot of the work involved in an open source library is not even user facing. It's just we have to do work to make our own lives easier too. Like updating how the
Yeah.
release process is handled is like a couple days worth of work. Switching from Yarn plug and play to PNPM was a lot of work, and
Yeah.
we kind of have to do that stuff to make sure that we're optimizing our own workflows, make sure all of our internal dependencies are up to date. Like that
Mhm.
stuff takes time, and it's not it's not always pretty or exciting, and people don't get new shiny releases from it, but we got to do that work. So yeah.
Yeah, that, and I know that that's something that we're hoping to with this time uh, be able to identify like any new opportunities for kind of like automation, with all this kind of crazy stuff going on with agents right now.
Indeed.
All right, so you were
Let's
saying
do
this
one more
looks
bug.
good. All right, which one are we on now? 2635 was it? Is that what I saw?
Yep. I'll just drop a quick link in here.
I can grab the link if you want to. Oh, nice, you got it. You got it.
Got it. Yep. All right, so let's see this one. Let's see, what are we doing? Close on resize, and then size has changed. Yeah, I'm not going to merge this one because this is not I don't think it might not be the most optimal way to do this. So like, here's one where like we need to really be careful about potential performance issues. Like resizing, like event listeners for resizing window can be pretty expensive depending on what's actually happening in that callback. And
Hmm.
so we need to be kind of careful about just YOLO merging this because this might actually potentially be slow. I don't know if it'll be slow, but we need to consider that. And also, I probably don't want to even attach this listener if the thing is already closed. Like, essentially, what this is
Sure.
doing is you want the select to close when the thing is resized. But if it's already closed, like we don't need that listener hanging out, and we don't want to like pay the performance cost of that. So probably not just going to merge this. And also, there's probably some conflicts. A lot of the conflicts are honestly just because of some refactoring that I did around just sort of like how files are organized. And so another thing is like when issues become like pretty old, a lot of times people who initially open the issues, they might just, or the PR might just move on from that thing. They might think
Yeah.
like, not worth it, not what, whatever. I've tried to help. Now I'm just moving on. So I could ask this
Sure.
person, hey, can you go in and resolve these conflicts and make these changes? And they may or may not do it. If they do it, awesome. I love when people are engaged, and I hope that we can still solve their problems. This user also may have done what I suggested and just used patch package and moved on with their day. And that's fine. Like, that's open source. Like, it's a two-way street. We might not hear from this person again, but it might be a valuable addition. So what I might do in this case is resolve the conflicts myself, make the changes that I want to see, push it up to this branch, make sure that the person who originally opened the PR is still credited in the commit, and then just merge it from there. So I might, and that actually takes a little bit more effort too. So I'm not going to bother with that right now. What I will say is like, I'm just going to leave some feedback. Say, hey George, I'm going to say, sorry it took a while to get to this. Let's say 2 quick changes. Request. Resolve the merge conflicts. File name.
I'm curious, is an event listener like this, and I actually don't know the answer to this, is an event listener like this favorable to a resize observer in this case?
Sorry, say that again.
I was just wondering in this case, and I don't want to get too far in the weeds, but like in this case, is a resize observer is watching for the resize events favorable to like a resize observer? Is there like a line?
this is the window resize event. So it's a little
Okay,
different. We're not actually looking at the size
like
of
an
an element.
element.
Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah,
like resize
got it.
observer would be something we would use for like check like watching the size of a specific element.
Of the specific
Um,
element
yeah,
versus like the window itself. Yeah, 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 that makes sense.
yep. I do think that I want to merge this at some point, just because I think it makes sense. Like essentially, the behavior here is when the window size changes, the popover should change, and the reason for that, you've essentially blurred the select because you started interacting with something else, and we always close the popover when that happens, or we're supposed to. But secondarily, like you don't want the popover like jankily moving around the screen as you resize things because it's anchored to the button. And so as you resize the window, the button necessarily moves, and then the actual placement of the popover might look a little janky, and it's just kind of gross. And it's better, I think, to just close the popover when that happens. So I think the actual intent is good. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to keep myself assigned. Um, and yeah, I think we're just going to keep myself assigned, and we'll say label waiting. I think there's like a wait response, maybe. Maybe not. Let's go ahead and create a new label. That's a useful label to have. And so I'll say awaiting response. And so what I'll do is I'll come back to this guy. Since it's assigned to me, I'll always see it. I'm going to keep it in my inbox. And then after say like a couple weeks, if this person has moved on with their life and decides they don't want to deal with it, I'll just come in, make the changes I need, and get that merged.
Love it.
All right. Triaging is fun. All right. Let's take a break because we've done some triaging. I just kind of want to like hit high level like how we're maintaining
Yeah,
the library. Today's really like I think just high level view of like what this looks like. So
we're figuring it
triaging,
out.
we're figuring it out. So
That's what
triaging is a big
triaging
part of
looks
it.
like.
Well,
Is
that's
this
what triaging
reasonable?
pull. So there's pull requests. Like so, there's actually two steps. There's the PRs, and then there's issues. Issues are a little trickier because issues, no one edited the code for you. They just told you there's a problem, and sometimes they don't even bother telling you how they got to that problem, and you have to just decide whether or not it's even worth exploring because that's a lot of work. So let's go ahead and do the same thing here. We'll say sort by oldest.
Yeah. Did you want to shift to high level first, or do you want to go into issues for a second first?
Let's look at a few issues here.
Okay.
So this one's old. So and also the nature of like the repo changing hands a few times and different maintainers coming and going on the project. How we've sort of done the triaging has changed. So like Benoit may have had like difficulty labels and all these other labels that I don't even necessarily look at or use anymore. So like I might want to go in here and update these things. And Benoit's obviously not on the team anymore, so I'm just going to reassign this to myself. This one was opened by Pedro, who used to also be on the Radix team, so I have a high degree of confidence that it's at least worth looking at. So I'm just going to keep myself assigned and say needs investigation. Because it may actually not even be an issue anymore. This is from 2020. So I'm going to tooltip and didn't think about the
That in a
fact
minute.
the arrow needed to be inside the position component. Sometimes we fix bugs and forget about it and just don't close the issues. So that's
That is, yeah, that's kind of a funny thing with these issues is that they're not tied. Issues aren't tied to code, so there's no way to really link it back unless you manually link it.
yeah. I don't know if this is actually. This might just be kind of like a DX issue where like I think it is. I don't think there's actually a bug. It's just like I think it's just a DX thing. It's funny that I was tagged on this because this was when we were still all at modules, and so this is an ancient issue. Um, and I even added a label to this that I forgot in December of 2020. Good times. It's like time traveling. All right. So anyway, that's kind of like that was an easy issue to look at. But basically, I'd go through issues, and what I typically look for. Let's just go into like a random one.
Yeah,
These are I'm
what do you look for? What's kind of like attracts you to like what draws you in to
All right. So here,
an issue?
oh, here's a great one. I can already tell you. The second that I see somebody actually post a reproducible example, you've already gotten like 10 steps ahead in my, I will look at your issue. So yeah, so essentially, if you open an issue on GitHub, please, for the love of God, for all that is holy, please make a minimal reproduction. And I'm going to break this down. What does this actually mean? Because, and you know, I know people are just trying to help, but let me tell you what's helpful and what's not. Because this is it's really important to get good at this if you want your issues actually looked at.
Yeah,
Um,
if you want to help, it's good to know how to be helpful.
so, what is a minimal reproduction, and why do all maintainers want one? So, if you have a bug, and you likely encountered this bug in your application had a lot of complexity, a lot of business logic involved. There's a lot of moving parts. And so when you encounter a bug and your instinct is, there's a bug in this library, I'm going to go open an issue. First question, is the bug actually in that library, or is it somehow related to all the business logic and other complexity in your application?
Uh,
You got to first narrow it down to figure out for sure that it's a problem with the library and not your handling of the library. So your first step is trying to isolate the problem. This is just like basic debugging, right? Like if I, before I ever even open an issue, if I was just debugging a problem that I had in my app, I want to make sure I know what the problem is. And the best way to do that is to isolate the thing that you're having a problem with in a way that it's not necessarily being impacted by these outside influences, right? So like, how
mhm.
can I find this price? Like get bisecting things, right? Um, so let's try to isolate the solution to the smallest number of parts possible and try and figure out what is the source of the actual problem. And so I might want to go into a sandbox, like Code Sandbox or CodePen or some sort of like tool, or start like create a minimal app that just doesn't do very much. Bring in the things that I'm doing and try and reproduce that bug in a smaller, more isolated environment. If you do that and you do it in a way that's shareable, you now have evidence to show this bug that I claimed that exists in your library actually exists, and I have proof. So here's my proof. So you give me a code sandbox, you tell me exactly how to reproduce the problem. In my project, I have this issue. Oh, they even made screen recordings. This is excellent. I love this. I love this person. They are on the top of my list. And I'm sorry that it took me 2 years to look at your issue, but I'm here now and I'm going to assign myself because I believe you, because you've made a reproducible example.
Yeah,
Um,
Zeka, the champion.
so yeah, please do this. If you have a problem, please do exactly. Just I'm going to link to this issue too as like a model. If you can do this for me, I love you, and I will probably look at your issue, hopefully faster than in 2 years. So
Should we
sorry
have a
about
tag for
that.
like like strong ishes?
I
Copy
should
this
say,
person.
yeah, I should say sorry, a sorry label that it took me so long. Yeah, I think of a number of labels, but no, this is great actually. So I'm going to say needs investigation, because the thing about issues is, so since there's no actual code to review, I can't, there's nothing to just merge, right? So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to go in and read through the actual instructions, figure out like how to reproduce this. And since they've created a reproducible example, it's very easy. I just look at their example, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in here to the code sandbox they made. I'm going to update to the latest version of Radix and everything, just to make sure that sometimes we just fix an issue and don't close it, or like we didn't know about it, but it actually was addressed somewhere else. So anyway, I'm going to update Radix, make sure it still exists in the latest version. If it does, then I'm going to start actually debugging it. And then once I debug it and come up with a solution, I will open a PR of my own. Usually I open my own PRs and just auto merge them. And then I think of the Obama meme where he's like giving himself the medal. That's kind of my workflow. So I just merge my own PRs and go along with my day. But I still like to, for most things, open a PR rather than push directly to main. It is nice
Yeah,
to have a
yeah.
little bit more
Very
visibility
simple.
for people who follow along at home. Like you can always look at the commits; they're always traceable. But like,
Mhm.
um, it's nice
Yeah,
to have like a PR paper trail for people who want to see what's actually happening in the repo really easily. So
yeah, yeah, yeah. And also, I mean, it is such a good way to, I mean, as we kind of discussed already, sometimes the issues don't get tagged to code. And it is an opportunity to tag it to code and then obviously they have a message, so you can kind of incorporate a little more storytelling and like why and importance and all that kind of stuff at a high level there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, and then the last place I'll look when it comes to triage is I'll just take a peek in discussions. These are kind of things where um, someone has an idea for something in the future of Radix. They want to, maybe they want a new feature, maybe they just need some help. They don't have an actual issue with the code. They just don't know how to do something, or they have a question. And there's a bunch of unanswered discussions. And this is honestly just one of those things that comes down to time. Like, I like reading through discussions. I try to read through them as when I can. It's just limited time. Sometimes I have time to get to them quickly. Sometimes I don't. And when we have a bunch of issues to look at, it's just probably the lowest piece on the totem pole for me. So that's just kind of the reality of that situation. But yeah, so let's just take a look really quick at a discussion.
Yeah, I wonder if there's a way that we could promote the visibility of these. Maybe that's something that we kind of think about for discussions, is that, it's very possible that people who are on Twitter could answer these questions.
Sure.
And I wonder if maybe some of our triage efforts for discussions is just like promoting them.
Possibly, yeah. Maybe actually, this might be great if you're not in our Discord. This is another thing that we've had this Discord server for a while, and just like different levels of activity in it over time. It's been kind of slow lately, but it's actually a pretty good place to ask questions. So things that people post in GitHub discussions are things that I see less frequently than things that people post in our Discord, because I try and just keep this open at all times and take a peek. Throughout the day, I'll just take a look at different channels. So different projects are going to have different discussions. So yeah, so if people have an issue here, like facing the issue with slider only step, I haven't answered this person yet, obviously, but I will. So it's on my radar. I see it. Maybe it would be kind of cool to have a bot or something that integrates with Discord, where if somebody posts a new discussion, it also like cross posts into our Discord server, into the appropriate channel. So it could be useful. I'm going to assign that to Michael Chan, I think, and say, Michael Chan, fix this, do the work. I don't want to do it. Just kidding.
I think that's a good idea, because I'm Chantastic on GitHub, so I'll never see it.
Love that. I don't think I've ever seen you active in our GitHub, so I great deal of confidence that I can't tag you in anything.
Yeah. I was pretty inactive in GitHub even when I had to like live there all the time.
Yeah, it's easy to do. Like if you look at notifications, it's just like, holy crap, like I can't deal with all this. Like there's hidden 45 notifications. I have different projects. I've muted half the projects I'm a part of just so I don't have to see that stuff. And I still get over it.
This is actually, I think this kind of like how to get attention is kind of like an under communicated skill in terms of like, open source and whatnot. I think a lot of people who are like, content creators or, like on social media or whatever, they understand like how hard it is to get attention from the people that you want to get attention from.
Totally.
But like, you have a whole career in open source. I basically like just put toys on the internet like for fun, because like I didn't like, I needed somewhere to host them. And even then it's like I don't want to look at my notifications. Like there's so much junk in there, and like I haven't even made meaningful contributions to something like Radix, and you're on so many. It's like Radix and Remix and a ton of them. So I feel like there is a lot of value in this idea of like, how do you get attention? And part of it is just like making a great issue that's like very easy to say, yes, you considered this, you thought through it, you demonstrated how it's problematic, and kind of at least alluded to a potential fix.
I'd actually say that's like 99% of it.
Yeah.
Because I guess we can like also talk about what's not good to do to get attention, or what can you do that will actually annoy me and I won't give you attention. And here's the worst thing you can do. Write a comment on an issue that says +1, or It's 2025 and this still isn't fixed. WTF? This so many people do this, and honestly, all you're doing is getting on my nerves. Please don't do that. It's not useful, and I also just don't. I'm not more likely to see it anyway because I don't even. That's not how I filter by issues. I don't look at like what was
Mm.
the recent thing that somebody commented on. So if you're just commenting on stuff, like it's going into the void. I don't just see it at the top of my pile because I don't even look for issues that way. I start for like what is the oldest issue and work backwards that way because I would like to get a lot of our older stuff just out of the backlog as quickly as possible.
Sure. And then maybe that will kind of clear out some of the newer stuff by virtue of being
Yeah,
done.
and then after I've gone through like by age, then I'll go through by prioritization, which I've assigned something a label, so I know based on my labels like what I want to prioritize. Um, so I sort of start by oldest issues first. Once I'm like ready to stop triaging and actually doing the work, then I'm going to sort by my labels. So if you're just commenting just to say you're also frustrated with something, I'm sorry. I'm sorry you're frustrated, first of all, and I understand why you're frustrated. But I just go back to what I said in the beginning. Like, open up your node modules, take a look, and if you want to really help me out, open a PR. PRs are where I start my triaging day. If you open a PR, you're already 10 steps ahead of like actually getting a response because you've done a lot of the work for me, and that's going to help. It just is. And so, opening a PR is the most helpful thing you can do. Second most helpful thing you can do is just adding a ton of context to your issue with reproducible examples. Third most helpful thing you can do is contribute in any way that you see is actually constructive, right? Rather than expressing frustration on the internet is not constructive.
This is actually a
So
really interesting idea in terms of like that third space is probably really unexplored, which is you see an issue that you've also like finding an issue that you have that isn't well documented and then adding context to it.
I'm sorry, I got distracted because in our internal Slack right now, I made the comment about the Obama awarding Obama meme, and someone definitely just used one of our designers definitely just used like Chat GPT to create that meme with my face, and it is throwing me for a loop right now. And it's like
Please pull it
actually
up.
very,
Is there a
it's
way
very,
to
very, it's very unsettling. I'm gonna slide our internal Slack onto the screen here because it's like
Oh, good lord.
it's
Who does that look like? It doesn't look like you. It looks like somebody though. I can't decide who that looks like.
yeah, it's this is like I don't like this. I don't like this at all. Anyway, I'm gonna get that off
It's
my screen before I have a panic
super
attack.
unsettling.
Anyway, Scott's great. I don't like that at all, not one bit.
Nicely done, Scott. Thank you. Thank you for your contribution. Thank you for adding context to this issue right now. It's that's that's what we needed. Merge +1.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, don't do that. Basically, just like try and be as constructive as possible, but also just understand that this stuff takes time, and like
Yeah.
not only does it take time, like we also have to like just make like strategic decisions. Like if it's just a bug fix, it's one thing, but sometimes the bug fix for one person is actually like a problem for another person potentially. Like maybe it feels like a bug, but actually it's like a feature that you just don't understand why it's there.
Mm.
Um, there's so many different things to consider. There's like if your bug fix or thing that you're trying to do changes the core API in a meaningful way, like that's potentially a breaking change we have to consider.
Yeah.
So how does that impact other current users is a big part of it.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many things to consider when it comes to maintaining open source stuff, especially when they're popular libraries. So
Yeah.
just like try to come into these things with a little bit of empathy and understand that maintainers have full-time jobs. And we are sponsored by WorkOS, and that provides us a lot. I mean, that's great. Like the open source ecosystem needs more of that.
Yeah.
WorkOS does, believe it or not, like they're paying me to work on this. So like WorkOS is very invested in making sure that Radix is as good as it can be. You can't just expect them to dump infinite resources into a thing just because you happen to use it. So like there, we have to make money too in order for this to work. So it has to be sustainable. So just like I guess just like having a little bit of empathy goes a long way because I think what empathy gives you is it gives you understanding when something is open for a long time and it doesn't necessarily get addressed
Yeah.
in the timeline that you would like. It also, you think to yourself, oh, this person must be busy. How can I help? Like, if this is bothering me and it's a bottleneck for me, maybe I can go open a PR and solve the problem so this person has less work to do. Um,
Yeah.
I just think, I think just that understanding really does help.
Yeah, and I think, yeah, it is. I don't know. Going through the stream, I'm realizing like how many opportunities we have to kind of help folks solve their own problem, um, even before bringing it to an issue. But then also just kind of like how we make better issues, ones that can easily be seen. I had this experience actually with Raycast. So I use Raycast a lot. I'm a big fan of it for kind of building up keyboard automations like on your Mac. And I I have a nightmare of a keyboard situation. Here, I'm gonna put the faces up for right now. I have like a
I've seen
nightmare.
your keyboard situation. It's chaos. I love it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It
Uh,
is actually.
can I actually say, like tell people what you do?
Yeah,
It's
sure,
kind of
sure,
nuts.
sure.
So Michael Chan has two of these Apple Magic keyboards. So you know how a lot of people have split ergonomic keyboards, like just one keyboard that's split down the middle, and you get to use with different hands. Michael keeps two of these on his desk and just like puts one on one side, one on the other, and is just going bananas on each keyboard as if they're one keyboard, and it's brilliant, first of all, and also like for some reason unsettling for me to watch. It's like I don't understand how a person does that because I don't know why. I don't know why it bugs me. It just
I
kind of
know it
does.
shouldn't because it's brilliant. It's crazy and
It is.
brilliant. I think.
I
Yeah,
credit you. I'm telling you, it is
yeah.
absolutely brilliant, and I still hate it. I don't know why.
I agree that it's unhinged though. But like so I have a cursed keyboard
Yeah.
setup. So we'll take that as it is, and not only that, but I switch keyboard layouts sometimes between QWERTY and Dvorak. Like I main Dvorak, but sometimes I need QWERTY.
Sure.
And so one thing that sucks about one thing that's challenging about Radix is that it uses key position um, instead of key code for key bindings. So when I switch layouts, it's like my whatever P becomes or my L becomes P or whatever because it's based on key position, not the fact that like P is like somewhere else on like a different layout. And so I was reminded of that because like in one sense, like I'm like, oh well, they just did it wrong, right? Like my natural inclination is like they did it wrong. However, like maybe someone uses that to switch layouts and then still keep their muscle memory around which key. Uh, they want the muscle memory as opposed to like the mnemonic behavior. When they switch layouts.
Let me actually dig into this a bit so I can understand. So
Yeah.
when I look at a key down event listener and I say event.key equals enter, are you
Yes.
saying that if you have reconfigured your keyboard so that the enter key is not actually doing what you'd normally do with enter, that breaks?
Yes. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, and I think that
So
there's two ways to get a key. There's like key code, which I think is the
yeah, yeah,
actual
yeah.
letter, and then there's like a which event or whatever. I don't actually notice
Yes.
this in web software, but I do notice it a lot on like Mac software. There's a which event or something like that, and I think that one's wrong, or that one gets the physical position of the key, not the character of the key. And so this happens in a lot of software that I use.
Hmm.
Specifically like video editing software. L and J are pretty common for like moving the playhead, advancing the playhead at different rates and whatnot. And those are always bound to the position of the key as opposed to the letter. And so it's like I've reported this issue to like a ton of different apps. But I'm thinking in the Raycast, case, like it's very possible that they're like, oh yeah, totally, that's an issue, we'll fix it. And then like 100 other people are like, oh no, I needed the physical position because I want my muscle memory to stay the same no matter what layout I'm in. So I
Yeah,
think
that's
that's
interesting.
all. Yeah, it's all just to say, like, I think that there are a class of things that feel like obvious bugs, like, oh, this is just wrong, and aren't in. Maybe even if you would code them differently today, there is enough of an install base of people who expect that that even if it was like, yeah, I want to implement that right away, we can't. Like that happens a lot, I think, in open source, where it's like, oh, you know, we would break a gazillion, like Smush, right? Like, like the whole Smush debate, like was just like, oh, we would break so many apps that are just not maintained, like it's not worth it.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And but I am gonna follow up with this because I'm super interested in your issue. If you run into it again with Radix, can you please open an issue with a minimal reproduction and tell me about it so that I can
Oh,
actually
sorry,
look
I
at it?
said Radix, but I meant Raycast.
Oh, sorry, sorry.
Ray.
I thought you were saying that you also had the issue in some Radix components.
Oh no. I was
Okay,
just
no
using
worries
that as an
then.
example of like an
Okay.
issue that's kind of like has so much like social or like
Yeah, yeah,
install
yeah,
based calcification
yeah, yeah.
around it that you can't, even if you want to, make that change.
Well, in that case, just ping Pedro and yell at him and say, "Fix it." That should help.
we
It's like
did
plus
we did
one.
have that conversation. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll post. I'll find it and I'll post it in here in case anyone wants to. Anyone else has a cursed keyboard setup like me and wants to follow
I
along.
am genuinely curious about this though, because like I would expect if you to like if you use some software to remap your enter key to something else that it would still be registered as the enter key on event.key. But I could be wrong on that. I need to double check.
You would you would think so, but it happens enough, and the fix is just to like press where the key, the physical position of that key in QWERTY is. That
Hmm.
it's like I imagine it's just there's a way of binding keys that is based on physical QWERTY position.
I'll look into that because I like knowing these little nuanced things because it actually it helps, in making sure that Radix components are used correctly, in different contexts and different variants of keyboard setups, including people who do silly things like use two Mac keyboards. We want to support you too, buddy.
Even us weird ones, us unhinged keyboard degenerates.
It's not that unhinged. It just looked funny because we Shane and I did an episode of Jason Linksdorf has his web dev challenge recently, and we were on an episode together, and we're sitting right next to each other, and he's got both of his keyboards out, which also just takes up a bunch of space on the table, and I'm like trying to get work done
I
over
like
here, and
to
he's
I
got
like
he's
to
got both
spread out.
elbows like splayed out here, and I'm just like, come on, man, like cut me a
Just
break.
code spreading.
Yeah,
Code spreading. Which is so funny because most of the time I was just vibe coding anyway. I could have just said it out loud instead of having to have
yeah,
like 10 keyboards to tell an LLM to write code for me.
it's true.
All right. Speaking of that, so we got about 33 minutes left. I want to make sure that you have all the time that you need to
Sure.
kind of focus on whatever's next.
All right. Well, no, I think that's in a good spot. So something I did, we sort of glossed over it or switched topics, but this issue that I just looked at, I could tell pretty clearly this is actually, so I even led here, it's a question. And I think back in 2022, we actually didn't have the discussions tab activated. So I just moved this to discussion because it is a discussion and not an actual issue. And the actual discussion is around a new feature that would allow you to add like to use like slot. So I'm going to get in the weeds here for a second too about like another implementation kind of component or utility component we have, which is called slot. Let's see if I can find the documentation for it. So slot is something that we use extensively internally, but it's also something that you as a consumer can use that essentially says, I want to. So we have this like as child API, which a lot of folks I'm sure are familiar with, where you render a component and you say, I want the child of this, like say a select or whatever, a select trigger. By default, the select trigger is going to be just a standard HTML button, but maybe I want the trigger to be an anchor tag for whatever reason, like for a tooltip or something, right? Same thing with the tooltip. Or for some reason, what we do internally is not the thing that you actually want to render. So we have as child, where you can write a component and say as child. Now the child component gets cloned, all the props get deduplicated and chained, and then it just quote unquote just works. And so we use the slot utility component. And then externally, if you want to do that to say recreate your own kind of Radix style component, we want to give you the tools to create your own things. Like if you want to create your own combo box, for example, you should be able to do that with things that we expose. And so we give you a slot. You can, there's like a few different API examples here. If you want to render multiple children and say the child that you're concerned about is over here, we give you the slottable thing. And so what this issue is actually about here is what happens if I want the slottable thing to be nested inside of another thing, right? That is a little trickier. You can't just do that because internally in Radix, we're going to say this is the slottable thing. I want to clone this span and merge its props, not the children here, right? Which is actually, if I'm like the user here, what they want is to do it with whatever children are actually passed along. And so this is actually not possible today. And so they're essentially requesting a new feature. And so since this is a feature request and not an actual bug, I just converted this to a discussion. I do actually think this is a good idea and something we should support. It has already been categorized as an idea. And I do go into our discussions and look for ideas and try and figure out what's worth doing. We don't have like a public roadmap or anything for this kind of stuff. It's really just like, what are the good ideas? How long would they actually take to implement? And like, what are the APIs that we would want for this idea? Because there's a number of different approaches we could take to implementing this. And since we haven't made a decision on it, we just haven't implemented it. So we will at some point probably come back to doing this. It's just, there's a lot of questions to answer still. So
Yeah.
So I'm just going to leave this in discussions. And when we get a chance to come back and start thinking about new features, we will come back to this and I will assess it and see if there's any resolution. So yeah, I think we've kind of gone through the different things in GitHub that we would be looking at on a given day if we're triaging. And ordinarily wouldn't spend as long as we did triaging, but I wanted to make sure we talked through some of the logic.
Yeah.
I think in future streams we'll probably talk less and just work more.
Okay.
I think this is really good for just providing some context as to like how I think about these things.
Yep. I agree.
And so next thing I want to do, I guess in the next 30 minutes, what I want to do is crack open some code because I'm actually in the middle of working on something for Radix. And this is like a long-standing issue that some folks have had with rendering Radix components inside of iframes. So for folks who don't know, in JavaScript, there's the global window object, there's the global document object, there's a bunch of globals that exist in. You can just say I want the window, and the window is this big global thing, right? Like it's the global window. And sometimes I want to do things with the window or with the document. I might want to add an event listener. I might want to do some measurements, or I might want to create a new element that exists in this context. And if you're using these components in an iframe, you don't actually necessarily want the global window, like the outside window, right? A window in the context of an iframe is actually slightly different. So when you have an iframe, you've essentially got a nested window inside of another window. And so what you actually want is the window in the context of that iframe. And it's a completely separate world where everything is sort of locked down inside of this iframe and isolated. And so we do extensively in Radix do things with the window object or with the document object. And that is problematic in some instances. That's problematic in the context of an iframe, because what we actually want is the document object in context of the frame, not the global document. And so what I'm working on right now to address this has been open for a while. There's been a number of PRs actually submitted to solving this problem. And some of them, like there's different approaches you can take to solving this, because in order to know, like we don't know anything about iframes in in Radix. We don't know where you're rendering a Radix component. So how do we actually know what window object to use? Well, a few different ways you could do that. You could say, I want the consumer to just tell me. I want to have a document prop or whatever, a window prop or something. Well, in practice, it's actually pretty tricky because React components can be rendered on the server. And if they're rendered on the server, there is no window. If they're rendered on the server, there is no document. And so then you have to do something gross like, am I do like an SSR check? And if so, pass the document. If not, don't pass the document. That's fine. It's not fine. I actually think it's kind of gross. But generally speaking, I don't like to just have you pass in like a DOM reference or something that only exists in the browser. I don't want you to pass that as a prop because something that you really generally don't want to do in there are some cases where you do and there's ways to do this, but like generally you don't want to do too much that depends on the DOM during the render cycle, because
Sure.
what will happen is you'll have a client server mismatch, and that creates like hydration issues. So
Yes.
very, very common for people to end up in a state where the server rendered one thing and the client rendered another, and React can't hydrate properly, and now you've got a bunch of really weird bugs because React attached event listeners to the raw elements for some reason.
And they're
Um,
just so hard to identify. Like
they're hard to
actually figuring.
identify.
Yeah.
They're really annoying to deal with. So we just want to like avoid that as much as possible. So I don't want to necessarily like let people just give me a window because the window may or may not exist. So so that's a thing. Also, it's just kind of clunky to tell people, hey, tell us what window you're in, and because if you're in an iframe, you have to do that for every single component, which is kind of annoying. Someone recently had submitted a PR where they created a new. Let me see if I can find it. They created a new primitive. I think it's use documents is what they did. Maybe. Let's see. Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, I closed this issue because I have a PR that tried to. So this person, what we talked about earlier, where sometimes people they come in with an idea, they they're in and out of the project. They may or may not actually come into anything. So this person came in, they made some changes. We didn't really get around to doing things in time on their schedule to actually merge the PR that they had opened up. So I opened up another PR that just basically took in all of their commits, rebased on main to get everything up to date, cleaned up some things. And this is still open. I may or may not ultimately actually merge this, still TBD. But essentially, what this PR does is it creates a new primitive for that people can use. It's like a document provider. And then in this case, like if you're rendering this inside of an iframe, you might say like, what is the global document, or what is like the nearest node that you can use to
Oh,
detect the
interesting.
global document or whatever. And so I might say like document here is, um, you know, iframe document, right? And
You would
sort
have
of
a
like
ref for that
yeah.
iframe.
So like the way that this would work is like you'd have a component that does this, and then pull this up. You would return this, and then you would say, "Oh, I want some sort of ref, iframe ref," and then let's just pop this into a fragment here, and let's say I had like some sort of iframe. And then I have a ref here. Now, what I might do, I'm going to also need like some sort of like iframe document, right? Or some sort of document reference. So I can say like document ref, use ref document, and then I can say like on load, say like, let's see, I can't type anymore because cursor has made me lazy. But grab a reference to the document for that frame. Once you have it, set the ref, and now I have a ref, and then I can say, okay, here's my document reference, right? Problem with this, a couple problems with this. First of all, what did we just talk about? We just talked about trying not to do things in render that rely on the DOM. What are we doing? We're doing
Yep.
things in render that rely on the DOM. We're reading a ref. This is also like a non-pure thing, right? Like in
Yeah, yeah,
React, a ref is mutable. And so you're in a situation now where you are reading a mutable value in render, which is like a big no-no. Like very core principle of React is your function should be pure. And so if you do some sort of like update, you want to make sure that that update is managed in a stateful way so that um, you've got a pure function essentially. And React obviously has primitives for that. And that is, instead of ref, we would say like use state. Let's say use state. And instead of that, we're going to set the state here. We'll say document, set document, boom, right? Instead of here, we're going to set the document. See if cursor can do it. Cursor, can you do it? Cursor is
go
fun
cursor.
and neat. It's kind of like tab key is kind of funky. So anyway,
It can be, yeah.
say now we've got our document. Anyway, so this PR is saying, hey, give us some sort of like provider we can use. And now internally in Radix, we can always go through and call like a use document hook that then reads this context. And it's pretty clever solution, but as you can see, it's like a little bit clunky to use.
Yeah.
And it does work, but I don't know. I have like some concerns still about the implementation and some questions that I want to answer before we just merge it, because it could potentially have some unintended consequences that I'm not sure yet. So I'm still thinking about this. All that to say, so I haven't merged it yet, but something that we can do alternatively. So this is something that I've done in the past and something a lot of other libraries do, which is instead of reading the global document, instead of like trying to detect the iframe and set it in state and all that stuff and use context, we can just use regular refs. So when you use a ref to a DOM node, you can use that DOM node to detect what document it belongs to. So I have this new, this new set of utilities that I'm going to use, like get owner window, get owner document, get active element, that can get references to things that are that we would normally think of as global, but find the ones that are associated with an actual node. So for example, if I render a tooltip inside of the document in an iframe and I need a reference to that document, I can look at the element itself using a ref and find out based on this owner document property that is just a property on the element type, and say, what is the owner document of that element? And now I know, right? No context magic needed. It just uses plain old JavaScript fundamentals and DOM fundamentals, and we can just tell where this thing actually belongs. And now we use that instead of the global. If that doesn't exist for some reason, there are instances in which case this will return null. So you just read through the browser spec in your own time, but I'm not going to dig into that. But essentially, we want to know the correct document to use in this case. And so what I'm in the middle of working on right now is just refactoring all of our code. So anywhere that we use the global window or the global document, I'm going to go through and assess the usage of those things. Sometimes you might want the globals. So if you're like doing a set timeout or something, global's fine. You don't need to worry about which document you're in for that timeout. Should work all the same. So what I did is I added an ESLint rule to our config. Let's see, our React package config to restrict globals. So anywhere I use this is going to surface all of our issues. And so I'm just going through component by component, and we have a lot of these. So there's like, I don't know, 30, 40 some odd components, something like that. So, and we do reference documents in Windows and such pretty frequently. So basically just going through and refactoring these. And it's a little bit of a tedious process, but it is a long-standing issue that people have had, a request that has been made for a long time. And the actual implementation is pretty straightforward and simple. So I'm not that concerned about it. It just takes a little time because it's tedious. So
Yeah.
this is probably something I could just ask Cursor to finish doing for me. Let's see how that goes.
There was an issue like this kind of in React, right? I feel like the difference between maybe 17 and 18, they shifted the way that event listeners were added to the document or something. It was like the nearest root, which is why like the root API changed or something like that. Kind of like a similar type of issue, it seems like. Also, Faze was making fun of your line spacing. I said it's because you used to write PHP that you have like the double
Yeah,
height line spacing.
yeah, yeah. It took me a long time when I switched to JavaScript to not put all of my brackets on different lines. I don't know if y'all
Oh
remember that,
damn!
but like in PHP, do something like this. It's actually awful. Like I super hate this now, but you would do. They had these like weird rules where instead of putting the bracket here, you would actually put it on a separate line.
Yes,
And every
yeah,
time I look at this now, I'm like, this is the gross. Who came up with this? This is
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
actually awful.
Did
Why
you
is
feel
this
like
on
it
its
was
own
better at
line?
the time though? Because
No.
that is definitely
Well, I don't
no.
know. I
You
mean,
didn't.
I probably did. I don't know. It's code style is one of those things where like if you look at anything for long enough, you are convinced that it's right.
Yeah,
So,
just like
eh,
fashion, right? Like things
yeah.
in and out of fashion. Yeah,
But or you just get used to things, and so you just like look at it over time, and I'm like, that's just where a bracket goes. Like I don't really think about it, and it's just. But now I'm using Prettier, and Prettier does everything for us, and I don't think about it. And so now I think the bracket on the same line is the best way to do it. And one day Prettier is going to change its defaults, and I'm going to get used to the new thing. So
I do appreciate
yeah,
prettier as a like. I just don't want to think about it. I just want it to be the same. Like whatever it is, but the same. I don't care.
yeah. I'm waiting on Cursor to finish. This is a long file, so it might take him a minute, but I'm going to see how good of a job this actually does. Yeah, it's pretty good overall, I think, so
That
far.
that is another kind of like goal of ours is to figure out like where we can. I mean, like we've written a lot of programs with our fingers, and so like trying to just be mindful of like where are ways that AI can kind of assist us more readily. I say AI, but LLMs and
Yeah, I'm
coding.
still like yeah, I'm still pretty new to a lot of these tools. I've been using Cursor as my main driver for uh, you know, maybe month or two. So I'm usually pretty slow to adopt new tools just because habits are hard to break and there's like a learning curve that you actually end up slowing down your workflow quite a lot, and I just didn't want to do that. So, but learning how to use it effectively is worth my time. So
You know what
I'm
might be kind of
biting the bullet.
fun is if we end up doing a combo box dedicated stream, having Cursor do like a first shot on like building a combo box, and then just
Spoiler
rapid
alert, I
data
already
with
did
it.
that internally and it didn't go so well. So, um,
I mean, but if you're gonna like rip someone's code apart, at least it's an AI's code. I mean, it's all of us, right? LLMs are all of us.
sure. I don't know if I agree with you on that, but we'll see. Let's see. So it made a bunch of changes. How do I adopt these? Isn't there a way to like, I hope you refactor? Isn't there like a button I'm supposed to be able to click that says apply these to my, like, why is
There
this all
should be an
grayed out?
apply
Do you know?
button. Oh wait, I think it halted. I think maybe it's too big.
Oh, yeah, that's a bummer. Yeah, it just stopped.
Yeah,
Okay, well, all right, well, we tried. Big files challenge for Cursor.
I wonder. Do you know
What are you
which?
gonna do?
Do you know which coding? You know which LLM it used? I wonder if you could switch it to something that supports bigger context windows.
It's a
I
great
don't know if that
question.
would give it
Uh,
more output though.
I just got to.
I know.
Yeah, I don't know.
What is it? The Google ones have
Is there
more
a way to use the
input
same
tokens
chat,
per
or do I
each.
need to just start a new chat? I'm just gonna start a new chat. So let's see.
Yeah,
Ask. Let's see. How do I change? There used to be a button here that I could just press. It would change
yeah. I think
the
if you go into
LM.
Ask,
No.
change that to like Agent, or there's that Ask dropdown by Auto.
Oh, this guy. Oh,
So
yeah,
hit
yeah.
that,
Cool.
yeah,
Okay.
and then you can edit your agent. So I mean, I guess you could choose agent. I think you can do a full manual one if you want. Um, the model will be automatic. So hit the
Interesting.
pen. Yeah, hit the pen by the manual one so that you can change, or whichever one you want, just so you can change the
Which,
model.
in your experience, is the most powerful one we could use for this job?
I think 2.5 definitely has the biggest context window, at least for like input.
I think max
So
mode
I
is like That just sounds powerful. So I'm gonna do max mode.
I think
Okay,
that just changes like how much liberty it takes. But let's try it.
let's give it a shot.
Yeah, see what happens.
If you can't do it on max mode, then I've lost faith.
I've noticed that the Gemini models, they are pretty good at understanding things and coming up with reasonable solutions, and especially plans, like really good like plans. But they're so timid about tool calling for whatever reason. And so it's always just reassuring it. Yes, I want you to do that thing. Yes, I want you to execute that plan. Yeah, it's like very cautious.
Let's see how this goes. Can you please show me the current content of? Wait, what? Why is this not able to read my file? Do you know?
That's a good question. I wonder if it lost context on, like, maybe you had it open. Can you like drag that file into the, I don't know,
Like here?
yeah, we'll let you link that.
Maybe. I usually there must be something in the agent mode that needs to be configured differently.
Yeah. That, or because it's a brand new window, whatever existing context that it had loaded is gone.
Yeah, I'll have to look into that. I think that's something that's really helped me in terms of adjusting to the new like LLM reality is I think I had like when I first started using everything, oh my God, this
Mhm.
is awful actually. This is
Oh,
not
wow.
good.
What happened?
It's
That's a
using a
lot of
bunch of
green.
things. Well, none of these exist is the problem. These are just it. Okay, so I think what happened is it somehow since it lost context to like the actual code in the code base, and I don't know how that happened. We'll need to figure that out. But I'm gonna reject all this because that's not gonna work.
Oh, because it's installing things from the library that it's
Yeah, so it needs
building
references
right now.
internal to the repo. So like for some reason it just lost the context, and I don't know why that is.
Mm.
So yeah, that was no good. So let's see, add context. Can we not just say like the entire library? Or maybe
Yeah,
that's
I don't
that's
know if
that's
that's
the difference
correct.
between agent mode and ask. I don't know.
Yeah,
Agent.
friends, tell us if you're better at
All right. Anyway, I disrupted my own train of thought here, but like, so something that has really helped me adjust to this new LM reality is to just fight the urge to get frustrated when it gets something wrong, um, and just admit skill issue because like using these things effectively is still a skill that I need to really develop and spend time developing, and it's frustrating because like I feel like I'd be faster if I just wrote the code myself. But like in the future, when I build this skill, it's going to do a lot of heavy lifting for me. So I just need to like
Yeah,
be patient and learn the skill.
yeah. Okay, Mohammed says, try
So
agent.
I did try agent. That's what we did just now. And so I think what the issue is for some reason is that it just doesn't it can't read my files for some reason. So auto run, auto fix errors. And so I'm wondering if add context here needs like. But this is what I'm not
Um,
sure about. Like I've never needed that in Cursor before to just like it usually is pretty good at like reading the entire code base, but like for some reason it's just not.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
that's what I'm like a little confused by.
Yeah, maybe we need to prime it in a way that we have not after switching the
let's go to
model.
recent changes maybe. Let's try that. Um, please refactor, select relative to use new DOM utils in.
Maybe seed it with some context too to say like, hey, you're inside the, Radix UI primitives package right now. This needs a refactor. Um,
Let's say I'll just add some specific place references to document with okay, and provide with a ref value and say same thing with window. We'll say same thing with document dot active element. And we'll say with get active element. All right, just give it a shot. See how that goes. That makes sense. Like I said, context is recent changes, and I have recently changed all these files, so it should be able to like look at that and see what it does. Okay, this is a good sign. So it's already like looking at my files. So that's cool.
Okay.
Grep search failed. Tools failing. It's not a good sign. I can't access code base info. All right, well we're off
Why are they?
to really confusing behavior.
I wonder if you should just restart cursor. I wonder if something's borked for you.
That wouldn't be the first time. All right, you're struggling. Dismiss. Go away. And copy all your instructions. Let's do that. Let's just quit cursor, admit defeat,
Dude, we're like
and reopen.
we're just such cursor boomers right now.
That's fine. I'm okay with that. Let's just start over. So ask. Let's go to agent. Let's say agent. I want to use this. We got this in max mode. Cool. Let's see. Add context. Say just code. I don't know. Search for code. Actually, you know what? I'm just gonna say let's do folders.
Hey, max mode is our option
Everything.
for enabling maximum context windows. Okay, cool. Which will be slower and more expensive. Normally, cursor uses context window of 128K tokens. That's 10,000 lines of code. Max mode is our option to turn on the maximum context window for all models. This will be a bit slower and more expensive. It is most relevant for Gemini 2.5 Pro and GPT 4.1, which have 1 million token context windows.
All right, so I think this is actually going to make the changes in all of my primitives, which, if it does it well, would be really nice. But I don't like committing huge batch of changes like that because I like to be able to quickly go and revert. So what I'll probably do is I'll wait on it to do its thing, and then I'll just sort of like analyze each of the files that it changes and commit them separately.
Yeah,
It's nice to be able to, yeah.
stage and commit each one, right?
Yeah, totally. So I'm just gonna like let it do its thing, and hopefully it is actually doing the right things this time. If not, I'm probably just gonna like admit defeat for now and come figure out the what I'm doing wrong later, so I can actually solve the problem.
So yeah, I don't think the context window would allow you more output. It just allows you more input, obviously.
Right? Yeah. What do you talk about while the robot does all your work for you?
Dude, we just watch it. We just watch it.
Most boring movie ever. So what'd you have for lunch today?
I didn't have lunch actually, and I'm starting to feel the consequences of that decision right now. I'm very hungry. What was
You
your
saw me
lunch?
scarfing down some food right before we started the stream. I had like 10 minutes to eat. I ate a poke bowl. It's kind of like my go-to. A really great poke place over here. For anybody that doesn't know, Chang and I both, we live like 30, 40 minutes apart or something. So we do occasionally see each other, and I can like drop in some local references that he might know. But we're both in San Diego. So yeah, there's this place called Pokey One and a Half here in North Park that is pretty solid and is
How,
like a 5 minute drive for me. So I just go pick that
how do
up
they
most
do the
days.
half? Is it 1/2 or is it 0.5?
It's 1/2. I'm looking at the logo right now.
Okay.
It's
Nice,
called
nice.
it's called Pokey One in Half. So one, the letter N, half, and the logo is like a one and then a half. So pretty straightforward. I don't know what it means. It's
Yeah, I
just
was gonna say
Pokey. So
mathematically one is not in half unless the total is two, like you have a quadratic equation type situation. I guess
I
then it
do
would be in
get
half.
I do get half as my base. I get half quinoa and half greens, and so I there's a half involved in the actual food itself.
Got it. Yeah, there's one half in there's one quinoa in Whatever.
That's just one half. There's still a missing one, but there's at least a half and a half, and then which I guess make a whole. So is it maybe that is just the whole? I don't know. This is a very tricky question to answer.
Riveting. If anyone
Yeah,
else is here, what do you have for lunch? Let us know.
yeah.
Uh,
Drop it in the chat. This is really, as what I said from the beginning, this is gonna be a very boring stream. So I'm just trying to find things to fill the air while we wait on our robot overlords to finish doing my job for me.
type 1 for Pokey.
One for Pokey, two for Spanish. I think we just lost everybody. There's no one's commenting about lunch, which just means everyone is completely checked out, and I
Yeah,
can't blame them.
yeah,
This
yeah,
is
yeah.
not riveting.
It's for us. We're sharing what we're doing.
It is. It is.
Oh, pizza bowl.
I think it's.
We got a
Did it
pizza
stop
bowl.
again? Oh no, it says still. You got a pizza bowl. What is a pizza bowl?
Yeah, yeah. Say more.
I need to know what. Because that sounds appealing to my senses. I just don't know what it actually is. I feel like cursor is hung up again. It says it's still generating, but it stopped outputting things.
Yeah, I wonder. Man, yeah, this sucks.
Yeah, it's fine. I like
How big
I
is this
think what I'm gonna
file?
do, it's pretty big. No lie, it is pretty big. So it probably just gets hung
Yo.
up. It's like 2,000 lines nearly, so it's a beefy boy. So I'm gonna
Yeah, I
stop
wonder.
this and just not worry about it. Well, I'm gonna worry about it. I'm gonna just do the work myself. And what I'm gonna do is I'm
Because
gonna come back later after I have read more of um the docs around agent mode because I don't actually understand the nuances of agent mode. Did it actually change anything for me? I don't think it changed that much. Oh, it actually did. Yeah. Okay. Uh, Interesting. Okay, I'm gonna get rid of these guys and just do this manually.
this is an
Um,
interesting challenge with large files. Like I mean, I'm just a little bit of a LLM coding rant. Like there's this tension where, you know, if you're building code, a code base for an LLM, ideally, it could just be in one file, right? Like you don't need to have it
mhm.
separated. It's like a human thing. Um, However, it has trouble really writing to these gigantic files, um, which is problematic.
Yeah. We just learned what a pizza bowl is. It's very important. All the things
Oh
for
yeah,
pizza
yeah,
with no crust. My body gave up on processing carbs and sugars. Thankfully, a few places
yeah.
started offering them because of the keto diet craze. That honestly, that sounds dope. Except for, I do actually want crust. So I don't know. Like if we could just like maybe crumble up some breadsticks in the bowl, I'd be down.
Yeah, I'm here for it. I'm here for it.
I do
Okay,
love
cool.
crust.
So we're at about our 2 hours that our goal was for today. Um, Kind of going into next time, what are we thinking we want to prioritize for next time? Obviously, we're going to do, I mean, like triage and all that kind of stuff. I wonder, do you think it would be helpful to do like, maybe 30, 40 minutes on building a combo box before we go into the stuff? It's kind of like a fun, I don't know.
Uh, I don't think so because just we're not sure if we want to ship a combo box yet. So I just want to put a pin in that. I don't want to give people false hope. So like, uh, or at least like I do think we'll ultimately will ship a combo box. Honestly, don't quote
Sure.
me on that, but I do think we will. I just don't think it's like it's not super high priority for us right now, and uh, we just need. There's just so many other useful things we could be doing with Radix time, like actually fixing existing issues. We did ship recently new two components. So we shipped uh, a one-time password field. So just segmented inputs for a one-time password, and then we also shipped a uh, another thing, password toggle field. So if you've an input field where you can toggle the visibility of a password. So two new components, and I'd like to go in and actually, we've had a few bugs that opened up around those, so I want to go take a look at those. So next time I think would be good to, I want to actually do some coding next time. Let's
Okay,
like,
cool.
let's just see where we are in the meantime, because I'm gonna like knock. I'm probably gonna knock through the rest of this task that I'm on in this branch and just finish that out. And maybe next time we'll look at that PR and maybe we can do some testing and then maybe we can work on a new feature. But yeah, let's just like try and do some coding next time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, so we'll focus on some coding, and What were the components that you wanted to get in?
Well, they're already shipped, but there's a one-time password field,
Okay.
and then actually I think we do have some docs for both of these. So let's go to the Radix docs real quick and drop some links. So yeah, one-time password field for people to reference. This is new, and then password toggle field, which is also new. So there's links to both of those.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah, we can take a look at some issues that people have opened up around these and get them fixed.
Perfect. Yeah. Yeah. I'd love to focus on some new work to show what that workflow looks like. So let's do that. Okay. Cool.
That'd be
So
great.
next time we'll focus on some code, fixing some bugs in some new components, and go from there. That's it. So yeah, Chance, thanks for doing this with me. This is fun. And yeah, so next week we'll get some more code out there.
Cool. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. It's, interesting to hear your inner thoughts said out loud. So thanks for that.
Always, always. All right, cool. We'll see everyone. Hopefully you can join us next week. We will I think be here. I guess we haven't actually checked our schedules, but we'll I don't know, that's the plan. Either, Wednesday or Thursday of next week, same time.
See you guys.
Cool. Bye.